What's up, Christ Universal Temple, the collective? It's Reverend Sheree here live with another Sunday Sermon Rewind. I am so excited. We had a little time change there, but thank you for clicking in and for watching. And you know, the cool thing about going live is you can watch if you click in here and you're watching along with us, or you can watch it later. And this is what you're in store for today. Today, I am doing a sermon rewind with Reverend Gaylon McDowell, and we're going to talk about his sermon. The title, we're in the wrapping out the series, New Year, New Life, and his sermon title is Jumping Over Hurdles. And so I'm going to bring my brother into the scene right now.
Hey,
What's up?
I'm good, Reverend Sheree. How about yourself?
I'm excited. So we went live a couple times on in our Facebook group. We've extended it some today with you. We're going live and on the CUT Facebook page and on YouTube. So I'm excited. We're gonna have a great time today.
Absolutely.
So what I want to do as we're kicking off, I heard someone say that you're not supposed to say Happy New Year after January 31st. So I know that the new series will have a new name, but we are wrapping out New Year, New Life, and the work that it takes to build a new year, to have a new life is ongoing, right? Like we know that
Right.
we're just coming in to share a little bit. I want to pull up right now I'm on the collective page. I just want to pull up the chat. There we go. So I want to give a little lay of the land before we start the conversation. That because we're live, you can share comments, whether you're commenting from the Facebook group, the Facebook page, YouTube. Just go ahead and add comments. I'll fold them into the conversation as much as I can. But I do want to say thank you for joining. I see you on here, Dorothy Jean. Dorothy Jean is my mom's name, and so I'm grateful that you're here to be with us for this live. And for those of you who are also watching, and remember that you can always just chat along with us, and we will fold your questions into the conversation. So I pull clips. We're going to talk to Rev. But if your questions come up, we're going to address those as well. So I just want you to know that this is our dialogue, and you can jump in wherever it feels right to you. All right. So with that, I'm going to play my first clip, sir. Hardcore metaphysician representing as always, and we'll dive in. So just so you know, I wanted just to set this up a little bit. So he's opening up and really painting a picture of what people's felt problems are, what are people's felt needs, what are people going through. And so I just wanted to kind of frame the conversation a little bit with that, so we can be right in step with the remedies, with the solutions, with the healings that he is suggesting, the modalities he's suggesting. So here we go.
Trust in government. Less trust. People have less trust in government, less trust in religion, less trust in the economy, less trust in education, less trust in the job market, less trust in the housing and rental markets, less trust in the medical institutions because of high insurance premiums and medical costs, less trust, a lot of pessimism. Many people across generations are pessimistic about love, pessimistic about relationships, and especially pessimistic about marriage. People are often isolated from family and friends for a multitude of reasons. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Many people are hypersensitive to any perceived offense, and often have complete mental breakdowns when things don't go the way they desire. Some people have never come out of COVID-19 isolation.
So I had to pull that part in, one, just to set the scene of what I thought you did was a magnificent job of just making sure everybody felt seen and heard, right?
Mhm.
Like you really went across, like I don't think anybody couldn't see themselves in one of the challenges that you mentioned. But the thing that really stood out to me, because I'm dealing with a few people who are still working with the effects of isolation, right?
Mhm.
And so I thought that was really powerful. The impact when you think about what's going on in the world and the impact it could be having on you that you may not even be present to. So talk to me about as you were pulling that together in the scene you set. Tell me, I just want to know a little bit more about why you set the scene that way.
Well, with my sermon title being Jumping Over Hurdles, I wanted to really get present to what are the hurdles that people are talking about. As I mentioned in the sermon, that I do watch the news. I'm not inundating myself with it to the point to where like it's overwhelming, but I need as a spiritual leader to understand the felt needs of people. What are they? What are their concerns? Where are their pain points, and what are those pain points, so we can address it? Because here's the thing: if I don't think you understand me, then maybe I'm not going to listen to you, and maybe I won't even listen to potential solutions because it's not you're not speaking directly to what's affecting me in my life or my experience or my community. So what I tried to do with that talk was to say, okay, people have different hurdles. Let's get to what those hurdles are. And then now that you hear that I'm with you, I'm not separate, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's have a conversation around what can we do about these hurdles, and an empowered conversation, because what's happening in the world often disempowers people. In other words, they're disempowering conversations, disempowering beliefs, disempowering images. And for people to even allow themselves to be open and receptive to an empowering conversation about what's happening in the world, they have to understand, first of all, that someone understands what they're dealing with. And, just to borrow one of your terms, that means you have to lead with love before you start teaching people.
Yeah. 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 It is, you're setting up the next clip really well too, because to take people from one place to another, you may not even know that you have that point of view, that because we think about things as being like, this is just the way it is, right?
Mhm.
I'm just keeping it real. But these are mindsets that we have built and bought into. And we got to look and see, it's like, is this how I want to see the world? Is this how I want to experience the world? And so
Mhm.
you talk in this next segment about another way to think about things, another place to move from, where to what this hurdle is about, right? And
Yes.
so I'm gonna play this one. I want to hear it. So I'm seeing you all chatting in a little bit. Remember that you can ask a question. Jumping over hurdles is the lesson that we are covering for today. And this was just from Hot from Sunday, January 28th, 2024. So I want to make sure that you know where we are. And then we're going to hop into this next one after we set the scene of people's felt needs, people's challenges. Now let's look at what is possibly in store.
I'm offering hope. What is hope? I looked it up in the dictionary. I wanted a good dictionary definition. And this is what I found. Hope is a feeling of expectation and a desire for a certain thing to happen. Hope is an early stage of trust that leads to faith. Hope is the belief that life can be better than it currently is. A person without hope is dangerous. Why? Because a person without hope will either do nothing to change their situation and environment, or a person without hope will do things to damage it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So hope is not just something to I want to be hopeful, but it has an impact on how we what we do in the world, how we look, how we act in this world. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we talk about a lot in New Thought Christianity is context. We don't always
Mm-hmm.
use the word context or
Mm-hmm.
paradigm, which is basically the consciousness through which life occurs to you. So the way life occurs to you will determine how you act, what you say, how you behave. And what I was trying to say is, if you have a context of hope, if you have a belief that things can be different, things can be better, it shifts how you think, it shifts how you feel, it shifts what you say, and it shifts what you do. So what I was trying to get across to people is, don't let people rob you of your hope, because a lot of what's happening in the world with all of this information overload with TV, media, movies, social media, emails, all this other stuff, scam likely on your phone. You try to pick up your phone and it's a whole other thing. People can't give up their hope, because when you give up your hope, you give up your expectation. And expectation is a form of prayer. Prayer really doesn't work right properly without expectation. So what I was trying to do is give people a different context. You can live in the hope context, or you can live in the pessimism context.
Right.
And because we live in a universe of cause and effect, both will have repercussions. The hope context gives you an opportunity to be able to see the possibilities in life.
Yes.
The pessimism context puts you in resignation, to where, like, why am I even trying to change things? As you said, what difference does it make? Once you get there, people have your mind, because you're not dangerous to paraphrase. It's not the exact quote. Carter G. Woodson in the book he wrote,
Miseducation of the
Negro. And he says, if you teach a man to go to the back door, he will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will compel him to create one. Once you can control how a person thinks, you don't have to worry about what they do. So there are people who are peddling pessimism, peddling resignation, peddling negativity, peddling lies, peddling the distortion of your own spiritual nature, so you won't step into your power. And what I was just saying in that sermon is, I get that all of that is happening, and I'm offering hope.
And it's important that we know hope is on the table, right?
Yes.
That there's, sometimes whatever you're going through can be so overwhelming, right? And it could be all that's around you. I call it like you're swimming in it, or you're in it like the fog. And so you don't know that there is a clearer way, that there's another way to see things, because you're so immersed in it. So I like the idea of snapping people out of the delusion that what they're experiencing is what there is, all there is.
Right. And it's not the reality. It's just the experience. And I think that's one of the things that we have to really drill down on. You are not your experience. You have experiences.
Right.
And just like a hurricane that has the eye of the storm, it can be chaos and winds going on, but the eye of the storm is calm and still. There's an aspect in everyone that is perfect, whole, and complete, even if they're not aware of it. And part of our job is to help people contact their spiritual anchor that allows them to be able to weather the storms of life, to deal with the hurdles of life, and empower them to be able to get the life they desire, to go after it. But you're not going to go after something that you don't believe is possible. Right. That's why you have to have hope. And I can just hear, being in Chicago, hearing Reverend Jesse Jackson say as a little kid in elementary school, when he ran for president the first time, saying, keep hope alive. Now I realize why that's so important now. Hope alive.
Yeah. It sounded catchy, but then you live a little bit and you get it. So you quoted Carter G. Woodson, you've quoted Jesse Jackson. So I want to pull you quoted someone else I wanted to highlight and talk a little bit about that quote in this next clip. Okay. All right, here we go.
The great 20th century self-help writer Napoleon Hill, most well known for writing Think and Grow Rich, had a statement he used to say quite often. The statement is, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. I'm going to say that again. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Your belief matters. If you can see it clearly in your mind and believe it in your heart, it's possible.
All right.
So this particular quote is really in and of itself a formula, right? Because you can work it both ways. What am I achieving right now? Because it's something that I had to conceive and believe in. And then the other way around is I want to have a new experience. So what do I need to begin to think about? What do I need to be able to conceive and then believe? And I think that this is where a lot of our affirmations sometimes, where we can get discouraged in our affirmations and in our prayer time because we have a desire for something, but we're not having an experience of it. And I think that middle part, that believe part, is where people may fall short.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, one of the things that I try to get across to people, because all of us in New Thought, because it's so broad, emphasize different things.
Right.
So one of the things that I try to emphasize is the conception in the mind, the picture. Can you see what it is that you say you desire? Because a person can say they want something, but they can't formulate it in their mind. Like, really, can you see it? See it not from the standpoint of just like, okay, I'm looking at something, but can you see yourself in it? The great 20th century mystic Neville Goddard once wrote that, if you're in your imagination and you want to, climb up a ladder, you shouldn't see the ladder from a distance. You should see your hands on the rung, like it's right in front of you. You have to see yourself in it. You have to experience it. If you want to be on the beach, you have to literally feel, what would it feel like for that ocean wind to hit my face, for that to walk through the sand, for that tide to come up and run across my feet. Like, what would it feel like? So just like we have physical senses, people have to learn how to conceive and think about it. When we say conceive, we say that when two people create a child, they conceive. Okay. You have to conceive it in your own mind first. And then you have to get to the place to where you can accept that it's for you. That's the belief. All right. So that could be done more than one way. There's one way in which you stay on it. I'm affirming, I'm visualizing, et cetera, and that way works until you recondition the subconscious mind. Another way that can be done is you can relax into it and see and get into the feeling of it, to the space to where, okay, I feel it and now I can just let it go. Either way, eventually you got to let it go for it to be able to come back. Because if you don't ever let it go, then it's like digging up a seed in the ground, wondering why it's not growing.
Right.
Part of the trust process is the let go and let God. I've done all that I'm supposed to do. As scripture says, what did Paul write? I planted, Apollos watered, but God gives the increase. So the question is, can I believe that what I can conceive in my mind, God will give increase to? Just a question for us to work around.
And I think that the part about, like, so the different approaches, because I love when we can share different approaches to things, because if you're fixated on one different way something can be, that often that can be to your detriment if that way doesn't work. But there are lots of ways to get there. So the idea about relaxing into it and being able to see it in your mind's eye just brought up this whole idea for me, like, okay, we don't put enough power and enough emphasis and enough value on our imagination and on how powerful our seeing power is. And so this is, and for various reasons, I know that if you've had experiences where you've been disappointed, and you may associate, well, I was visualizing this, or, of course I was thinking about it. And you're like, but it didn't come to pass. It didn't come into my experience. I'm disappointed about that. That we can look at that, just going right back to that formula, right? That whatever you can conceive, okay, I didn't believe it. Sometimes we're not clear. We didn't have a clear conception moment. Right. And so you may believe all that you want about the desire of your heart, but you never got clear enough about it. And I've experienced this personally. This is my own testimony, my confession session of what I call being in the ballpark of your dream. Yeah. That because it wasn't clear enough, you're kind of in the arena. So it feels good, but it's not quite it, right? Because the conception part wasn't clear. So we can look at this and really begin to examine our own experiences to see where to make an adjustment.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And again, this gives people hope, because what we're trying to do, or what I was trying to do with the sermon at this point, at least, was to say, how clear are you? Okay. And then the hope is the possibility part. I don't know if you have the clip where I say, I'm not asking you to say you can do it. I'm just saying it's possible.
It's possible. Yeah.
Because that at least starts your mind to accept the possibility versus saying, I know I can do it. Everybody can't go to, I know I can do it. But if you open up the possibility, then great things can happen, because with God, all things are possible.
So I believe that's just one mind. I believe that as a fundamental reality, right? Let's see if it's synced up for this clip.
Okay. All right.
I'm saying you must generate some hope that will lead to trust, that activates your faith by saying it's possible. What I'm offering is an opportunity to face the facts with truth and give you an alternative perspective that can empower you if you shift mentally. What we call growth opportunities, challenges, and seeming problems are going to happen, but you can't let them stop you or turn you around. You are made in the image and likeness of God, and you are one with, connected to the one presence and one power that we call God. You have access to more than your human potential. You have God potential.
All right.
That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. So many things just in that 1 minute clip, because I think that I love the punch at the end, which is to remind you, like I said, the power of your imagination, that you can connect not just to what you can see with your natural eye, but you can connect to the God potential, the God possibility, the infinite possibility of good, and work with that. And I think that that's always worth being reminded of.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. God potential. We have to remind ourselves that we actually have God potential, because it's easy to forget, and we teach the primary cause of suffering is forgetfulness. We've forgotten that we're spiritual beings with dominion over our own thoughts and feelings. And when we forget, we live a different way. I think of it sort of like The Bourne Identity with Matt Damon, where he was the super spy and he didn't know he was a super spy. And every once in a while he would do super spy stuff. And then he would be surprised, like, how do I know how to do all of these things? He just forgot who he was. And we have moments of inspiration where we see ourselves transcending our normal ways of being. But we don't know why. It's because we've forgotten who we are spiritually. Time to wake up.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to say two things before we move to this next one. Like I said, so many things, right? We're gonna behave ourselves. So the first thing is that this conversation was originally scheduled to go live a couple hours ago, and I needed to move the time. And I just realized a few minutes ago that we are stepping on top of the daily inspiration. So I just wanted to let the daily inspiration crowd know that, come back and watch this later. Either way, they'll both be there for you to watch on demand.
Now, the daily inspiration time happened at noon.
Okay. We would have stepped on it then. Okay, good. Okay. That makes me happy. Because when I looked up and saw daily inspiration, I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, just so you all know, I'm in Los Angeles on the Pacific time zone, and I have been jacking it up all day today. So anyway, back to the matter at hand. I wanted to shout out Tiffany. Tiffany says that she's been listening to Truth Transforms, And chapter 3, lessons in truth, you're talking about image and imagination, thought and thinking. Wow, I love life and how all things work together. I just stumbled on this conversation. Listen, when you open your mind up to the truth, right? These kind of things happen all the time that affirm what it is, that remind you and affirm what it is that you need to know. And so I'm glad that you were able to see that, Tiffany. And thanks for tuning in to Truth Transformed and finding us today. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
and let friends know about it, please. Thank you.
That's right. That's right. We want to spread the word because I'll tell you this. Yesterday, I shared 3 Instagram posts with some friends, and you got to think: am I spreading the word for the things that matter to me most? So I'm grateful for that reminder. So you worked with the scripture Isaiah 40:28-31, and it is a really popular verse. You took some more of it than typically we hear. So I'm just going to read it really quickly and then jump into your, let me see. I'll read this really quickly. So it's, have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youth will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord, shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And so you worked with this scripture as we talked about jumping over hurdles and the energy of jumping over hurdles. And so your first point, I don't know if I have it in my banner yet, but the first point was that jumping over hurdles requires more energy than a hop or a walk. It requires preparation. It requires sacrifice. And so I'm going to play this clip, and then I want to unpack that some more.
All right.
Many people try to change their lives with low energy, and it doesn't work. If you want radical change in your life, it will require radical change and radical energy and radical action, not low energy. Nobody's ever run a hurdling race by hopping. Nobody's ever run a hurdling race by jogging. No one has ever run a hurdle race by walking. And you're not going to win the race of life with that low energy.
So we heard you, Rev.
Yeah. You can't say that and then have low energy when you say it.
And then have right. No, I mean, but that's the idea of, if you, so there's some real important verbs that you use in the sermon that hit me real hard, right? So the one thing was generate, right? I didn't get to the generate part, that you talked about generating hope. And why that word stood out to me is that if you are mired in the circumstances of many of the ones that you shared at the top of your lesson, that you may be waiting on something to happen for you to feel hopeful or to begin to be in that, to have that experience of hope. But you said you got to generate hope so that you can cultivate your faith. You know what I mean? Like, there's a building, there's an energy, there's an ownership that I just thought was really, really powerful. And that energy from the scripture, right? That they that wait on the Lord shall not be weary. They're going to renew their strength. So there was just a lot of opportunity, I think, that you gave us to see ourselves and our power a little differently. So talk to me about low energy, raising up that low energy.
Well, the thing about it is, very rarely do people play all out anymore with their lives. They expect magnificent results with little effort or minimal effort. And life just normally doesn't work that way. It's, you can't make a really great dish in a microwave. If anyone could ever try to figure that out, I would be right in line. But it requires the time to do it right. Well, when you're trying to get a breakthrough, healing, money, love, forgiveness, self-improvement, you can't meet it with the same level of energy that you've been functioning from. It won't work. You have to up the energy game significantly.
Yes.
You have to something has to be sacrificed in time and energy, your perception of what should or shouldn't be done. Sometimes it's even pride. Sometimes people don't want to go all out because they don't want to be embarrassed. But, you know, I love to ask people, when was the last time you went all out 100% about something? You know, when we were children, when we wanted something, we went all out 100%. You know, we were 100% trying to win that race on our bikes. We were 100% trying to do whatever that thing we were doing, even if it was something as simple as climbing a tree. It was 100% present, all energy, not caring about what other people thought. But we're so concerned about perception.
Yeah.
And we're so concerned about disappointment, our own disappointment, not other people, that we don't play all out. So the energy that's needed to break through, we don't actually exercise. So I call it the difference between a spotlight or a flashlight and a laser.
Right.
If you have an obstacle in front of you, the spotlight can shine a light on, oh man, that's an obstacle. A laser can cut through it. What is the difference between a spotlight and a laser? The concentration of the light. The energy has been more focused, it's stronger. Therefore, it can do more things. There's nothing wrong with a spotlight. But it's like Reverend Ike said, you know, when people are praying for mercy, but mercy won't pay your rent. Mercy's great, but you can't can't get a landlord with mercy. So if you want to lose weight, it's going to require more energy. If you want to change habits, it's going to require more energy. If you want to have a better relationship or marriage, it's going to require more energy. It doesn't make a difference what it is. You want to get greater education, more skills, it's going to require energy. Someone once said, it's an anonymous statement, doing the same things the same way and expecting different results is insanity. And it's a lot of insane behavior yet in the world. And the unfortunate part of that conversation is a lot of people don't realize that they're being insane in the context of, I'm trying to get different results by doing nothing differently, expecting everybody else to change without changing themselves.
And you talked about like I said, that generation word, that G word, that verb, generating. You have to generate the energy, and it's. And let me just be real, because I know that when you are, I've been at a standstill for things before, where I've been putting in low input, getting low output, low energy, and moving and revving that energy up is not a simple thing, right? Especially if you are working to be internally motivated. Now, I have had financial challenges where I needed to come up with some money, and I had an obligation, and it was urgent. And I had to get pushed into motion, right? Because usually my big financial problems don't just smack you, right? There's something that build up, and then now you got to deal with it. And so I've been there where it's like I needed to be pushed on the outside in order to rev up the energy to start dealing with the challenge. But we can also generate that energy from within us. So it is you talked about that radical hurdle energy. That's the radical hurdle energy, the energy to propel. And if I wasn't afraid of getting dinged on YouTube, I would have played a video of a hurdler, because I think that to see to see it in action, I think really you painted a very vivid picture during the sermon. But it is to see that it's a different energy to come over that hurdle, and they're doing it over and over again. It is a beautiful race. And so the hurdles is where I want to go next, because you talked about the hurdles and that they exist. And I'll tell you, this will be Sheree's confession session, that I was a New Thought student who thought that if I just work with these principles real hard, if I work with these principles, if I spoke all the affirmations, if I shifted my consciousness, I would not have hurdles, that I would just be able to move through life with just the grace and ease. And I believe that way longer than I want to admit, right? Way longer than I want to admit. I just thought I hadn't got good enough yet. Yeah. So it is, it is important to understand that. And you talked about these big hurdles. You talked about two big hurdles, right? One was single parenting and goals and dreams, right? And how your beautiful wife pushed through some present obstacles in order to achieve her dreams. You talked about family members and addiction and the things that they did to overcome the hurdles so that they can have a lasting life of recovery and sobriety. And I think those hit real hard for me because those are two things that people will say that have stopped people.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't because I've been dealing with this, or I can't overcome it. And so I'm going to play this clip, and then I want to hear something about. I want you to talk a little bit about the hurdles and that they exist.
Okay.
Hurdles exist, but you must trust the God in you to do its perfect work in you, through you, as you. If you want to change your life, you need massive, consistent, and explosive action. Low energy gives up too easily. Low energy looks for reasons to procrastinate. Low energy never changes anything. Which leads me to my next sermon point. Any belief or circumstance that interferes with your goals and desires is a hurdle. Now notice I didn't say people. I said beliefs and circumstances. You're always primarily wrestling with your own doubts, fears, frustrations, and anxieties before you ever meet their physical equivalents. The battle for your life is won in your mind.
So I cut the part where you say that the battle's also lost in your mind.
Yes.
Yes. So there is a I think there was so much power in that space. So your point about any belief or circumstance that interferes with your goals or desires is a hurdle.
Right. And I think it's important that we remind people that one of the primary beliefs in our theology is that everything begins in the mind. That life is consciousness. And what we people throw around big words like consciousness and not really realize what it's saying. It's saying that as a mental, you're a spiritual being, but you're also a mental being, a mental field that's always radiating and attracting, always radiating and attracting. And in the midst of life, you're going to bump into beliefs and their physical equivalents, what we would call circumstances, people, places, and things that seemingly interfere with what you're trying to do. That's a hurdle. Now, the question comes into play is if you look at it only from an external point of view, you make it about the people and the circumstances. If you realize it's primarily an internal process, you realize that you're really dealing with your belief, not the person or the place or the situation. Then you can look at people, places, and situations differently because you realize the power is in the belief, not in the circumstance or the people. It's a perception shift. All right. Again, it's living in the hope paradigm, the hope context, or the pessimistic resignation that's based upon external factors alone. This is not saying that external factors do not exist. They absolutely exist. The question is, am I really, really fighting this circumstance? Or am I really only really wrestling with my own belief? Not saying that stuff don't exist. The racism, the sexism, the homophobias, the class warfare, the injustice in the justice systems for the way certain people just show up in life. Yes, all those things exist. And this is radical for some people. That does not have to be my experience.
Right. Right. Or it doesn't have to be your experience, and you are that, and you don't have to try to change it before you work on the idea in you, right? And I think that that's when it comes to some of those big things. I know that it's like, well, we got to go out and fight this, but that beam is in your eye, right? So you need to work with the beam in your eye first. And that is important. And I think that there's, especially when it comes to, like, you talk about relationships, and sometimes the first thing you want to do is, if this person would just change, right? If I can change that person, then everything will be right. They would just do this, then everything will be better. But the idea that that you are creating everything in your mind is a creative factory for your life, I think gives us back our power. I think it empowers us so that I'm not reliant on other people's actions and whether they decide to make shifts and changes.
Well, the question, Rev Sheree, is who is the you that's dealing with the situations? That's the real question. So
yeah,
if you're dealing with the big picture stuff that I mentioned earlier, a few minutes ago or a minute ago, who is the you that's addressing them? Because sometimes, we rally up and we want to go fight the battle, but who's the you that's fighting the battle, quote unquote?
Yeah.
So I had this conversation with last month with, I'm not going to say his name just because he's not a part of this conversation, and I will have to paraphrase what he said versus what he exactly said. But part of the conversation was the challenge of being New Thought in the context of also being a Black liberation advocate. And one of the things that I said to him was that one of the reasons why at times New Thought pushes back on some of the conversation is because New Thought is not going to ever come from the standpoint of victimization.
Right.
We realize this is a thing that needs to be changed, and it's wrong, it's unjust, it's ungodly, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to tackle it from an empowered perspective, not from a disempowered perspective. So if I have to start with the perspective of me having to define myself as less than because of these outer circumstances, then you already lose me in the conversation.
Right.
And he even said that when he goes in those circles, that's the hardest part of the conversation. That, okay, stop saying what you can't do, or why is it somebody else's fault that you can't have what you desire? Not because the systemic racism and other things don't exist. It's who is the you that's addressing this systemic racism or or any other ism? Who is the you? Because when it's all said and done, the you that's addressing it can either be stressed out, frustrated, making yourself sick and mentally unwell while you're picking up the sword and fighting life, or you can realize you're a conduit of spirit, that you're perfect, whole, and complete, and you're coming into this experience to help shift and lift human consciousness. And this is just one of the things that your soul has been drawn to address from an empowered point of view, okay? Not from a disempowered point of view, because victims always need victimizers. That closes the loop. The moment you claim victimization, you must have victimizers to show up. Okay. So I always tell people, do not be the victim at all costs, because universal law states that you must have a victimizer if you're a victim. And that's why victimizers are always looking for victims.
Right.
And you can, if you're a victim, you can be in a room of 100 people and you will find the one victimizer in the room, because you'll be drawn to each other like a moth to the flame. And they will leave everybody else alone and they will find you.
I want you to tag your activist friends, because I think that it is an important conversation, because sometimes the fire consumes them. They don't, because it is, the issues are urgent, important, and the transformation is right now, right? And I understand that fire, but the idea of the perspective, the who's standing up, for justice, who is the person, meaning which part of your mindset, like which attitude of mind is really standing up? Is it the Christ of you? or is it, like you said, the one who's feeling victimized?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I never forget. I didn't mean to talk over you.
No.
Years ago, when the situation was happening with those young boys in Mississippi, when they were being railroaded and do some legal dynamic, I can't remember what, they even had a name for them. And several spiritual leaders went down to have a rally. And spiritual leader after spiritual leader was getting up saying, we're coming to speak truth to power. We come to speak truth to power. And it was one New Thought representative there, our brother, the Reverend Michael Beckwith. And he got up and he said, I didn't come here to speak truth to power. There's only one power. That's God. Mm-hmm. He said, I come to speak truth to pseudo power, false power. See, it's just that radical shift by itself.
Yeah.
Changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who want you to think they have power over you.
Yeah.
Just a conversation.
Yes, there's only one power. Yeah, there's only one power. I'm saying it is important for us to remember that. We need to tell ourselves that, of course, and we need to tell that, tell that to the situations and circumstances in your life that you feel have power over you. That there's only one power, God. That power is good. Power is for me. That power is never gets back. You got to just remember to speak the word to yourself. So let me see. I got a couple more, I believe, that I must try to fit in here. So let me go with, all right. Here's a good one. I think this one falls in line with what we're talking about.
Okay.
Stuff happens. No one is exempt. Everyone has hurdles. It's a part of soul growth. It's not negative. As Reverend Coleman used to say, grow we must. Every soul is in the process of becoming, growing, expanding, learning. Every soul is evolving mentally and spiritually. Life is consciousness, and what's in the way is the way. What does that mean? If it's in front of you, it's because this is your soul lesson to learn from, so you can evolve. We try to run away from the soul lessons, and then they show back up as other people and circumstances because we never got the lesson.
Those repeated experiences. Why is this happening to me again?
Yes.
There's a lesson for you to get.
It's a lesson. Reverend Coleman used to tell us that when you don't get the lesson, every time you have to get it again, it becomes more uncomfortable. And she used the analogy of elementary school chairs, the little chairs with the desk where you can write. She says, well, if you're a grown-up in a third grade chair, of course it's going to be very uncomfortable. So it's important to get the lessons as quickly as you can, because once you get that particular lesson, now you've evolved past it. But you have to understand there are people who often try to run away from the lesson that's right in front of them. How do you know that it's your lesson? It's in your life. You're the common denominator.
Yeah. It's
in your life. That means it's for you to deal with. Now, deal with doesn't mean always fight it and wrestle it. Sometimes it might mean it's something you need to release. Sometimes it might mean something you need to forgive. Sometimes it's asking you to, generate more love, patience, etc. I don't know. But what I do know is if it's in your pathway, it's for you to do. And when we seek to try to do other things to manipulate life, we just end up with the same people, the same places, the same circumstances, sometimes in new cities and even new countries. But because we're the same, the situations and people don't show up the same. Because Reverend Ike used to say, I meet no one but me. Or as our brother, the Science of Mind minister used to say, Tom Johnson, you are always your own experience. Or as Mary O'Malley says, which is where I got the quote from, what's in the way is the way. By the way, if you want to hear me, I interviewed her about that book on my podcast. You go back several years on my podcast, I actually interviewed her specifically about what's in the way. is the way. So you can actually hear from the person who created the quote the details of that. But I just want to just drill down on, and I know we got to wrap up, just the drill down on, don't miss your soul lesson and have to go over it again and again and again.
Right.
I can't emphasize that enough. Don't create unnecessary pain for yourself. Learn the lesson. I used to jokingly tell some of my buddies that they love crazy women. It's not a diss on women, but they love, because it's crazy guys. But they were attracted to the crazy woman. I was like, dude, like, are you like, is it excitement for you? Like, how your tires cut?
Woo! Listen, we can do a whole rewind just on that, okay?
I'm like, eventually, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you want? Because crazy seems okay here. Crazy might seem okay at volume 2. What happens when it gets to 9 and 10? Now it's unsustainable. All I'm saying is, what's in the way is the way, and get to those root beliefs about why this is consistently showing up in my life. That's the soul work.
Yep. And you go into your last point in the lesson is a hurdler never looks back at the hurdle, only the finish line. Where your attention goes, your power flows. When you look down, you distract yourself. So there is the idea about where you're putting your attention. And I'm gonna share this because you use the analogy of Lot's wife and the pillar of salt, right? Looking back and the pillar of salt. And so I want to make a distinction between the idea of looking at your current experiences, noticing where there are repeated patterns, and dealing with what is coming at you right now. Because I think that there is purpose and reflection if it's about right now and about how I need what I need to learn. I'm trying to pull a lesson out of it, not to live and to relive and revisit emotionally something that you've already gone through.
Yeah. So let me just emphasize that I'm not telling people not to reflect. Okay. But you also have to realize there's times for everything. There's reflection time, and then there's get stuff done time.
Absolutely.
Okay. If I remember a time when I was playing outside with my daughter when she was a little kid, and she just broke and ran from the steps toward the street. So I ran, screamed. That wasn't a time for me to be like, stop, Angel, don't run, because there's cars in the street, and they might not see her. So there are times for everything. And when you're in the midst of doing certain things, you got to keep your mind focused on what you want. That does not mean it's not time for reflection, prayer, forgiveness, and release. We teach principles, and you have to apply it in its proper context. Please go
right.
forward.
And it's this, you're putting this in the context of a race, right? And so if you are looking at your goal as this is the destination, this is me winning. I can't go back and keep looking back at the starting blocks to say, look at how far how far back are the starting blocks? Or do you need to be like, how many more hurdles do I need to go over? Because I'll tell you, from the push-ups I did this morning in my class, you start thinking about how many more you got to go. That's a recipe. It's a recipe for a disaster.
Exactly.
All right. So let me play this clip about looking back.
All right.
When we allow our emotions to focus on the problem and start looking in the past and focusing on the hurt feelings, we get stuck at the level of our perception and attention, even when new good is right in front of us. Salt is a preservative. Before there was refrigeration, when people wanted to keep meat longer than a few hours, they would pour salt on it. When you keep your attention on the stuff that you don't want, you're preserving it. When you're holding on to that unforgiveness, you're preserving it. When you're holding on to that emotional, painful past, you are preserving it in your soul, and you will be stuck right there until you let it go.
So the preserving of it with your attention, right? That is, I think, something important for us to get that, especially in those repeated patterns that I keep focusing on it, and I keep allowing my emotions, which is what Lot's wife represented, like the idea of being stuck in that emotional space. And so there you are preserving it. And I just kept seeing, old problems just fresh in your experience right now, because you keep making them right now. You keep
I don't know
right
how
now.
well you knew the original prayer ministry director for Christ Universal Temple, the Reverend Christina Knox Walthall, passed away.
I didn't know
years.
her. Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
her.
So she was one of the groups, the early stage people. She actually went to Unity Village to study before UFBL. She was one of those. Matter of fact, Dr. Jones Lamza, the Aramaic scholar, was actually her Bible teacher. She had wonderful stories. James Dillard Freeman taught her how to do the prayer ministry. Wrote the Prayer for Protection, for those who don't know, amongst other things. She told me one time, and I've never forgotten this. She said, when people don't forgive and they start to hold those thoughts, those beliefs, this is a paraphrase, those thoughts, those beliefs, that energy, and they don't let it go, sometimes they have to go to a doctor so they can cut it out of their bodies. She was like, you hold it to the point to where it changes your biology, where those thoughts turn into growths and dis-ease. And because we don't mentally let it go, it builds up to a place to where it has to be physically addressed.
Absolutely.
And I've never forgotten that conversation, just sitting in her office and her telling me about, the doc. She called it, the doctor has to go cut your thoughts out.
That's some hardcore metaphysics right there. But then I talked about the value of your imagination. I think that sometimes we don't put value on the power of our thinking, that you are a creative being. Those things you focus on expand in you. They expand into your experience, and they expand into your body.
Yes.
And so there is a opportunity, I think, for us to wake up to the power that we have right now. I think it was Tiffany in the comments who said that she was working with that chapter on thinking and image and imagination, that this is you coming into your power. You're being reminded of your power. That's what these lessons are about, reminding you of your power, that you can generate energy, that you can transform, that you can use these principles to make your life better, right? They don't just get better because you heard about them, right? You got to put them into use. And so this is, again, your wake-up call, my wake-up call for shifting our mindsets. Thank you so much for this lesson today, for even coming back and being able to really break it apart some more. Jumping over hurdles. You can find a lesson. If you didn't happen to see the full lesson, you can find it on the CUT Facebook page. You can also find it on the YouTube channel, CU Temple. And so I want to encourage you to watch the whole thing. You may need to watch it again, and that's if you can fit it in, because Reverend Gaylon gave 1,000 hours of homework as well in the lessons. So you got some work to do. You might need to watch it again. Your homework, just in case you missed it, was to read the epistle of James 3 times in the next 21 days. It's not a long letter. And about activating your faith. He wants you to affirm, I am an overcomer through the Christ in me. I consistently take God-inspired action. What was the frequency of that one? Was it every 7 times
every
a day?
morning, evening for 21 days? And I believe the epistle of James might have been 7 times in 21 days. But yeah,
okay, 7. That sounds more like you. That sounds more like you. And your last was to work with gratitude. Write down 5 things each evening that you are grateful for, and to do that for 21 days. So I wanted to make sure that the work, because again, remember, this is work you're doing in your mind. And so what he's giving you is something to work with as you are working with these principles. And so thank you so much for the discipline and the and supporting our soul growth in this way. Jumping over hurdles.
You're welcome. It was great to be here. I hope people got something from this talk.
Yeah, I know you. I know they did. I did. I'm one of the people. So
All
thanks
right,
for hanging in
beautiful.
there with
It
us.
worked. All right.
It worked. Yeah. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We'll be going live again. Who's giving the sermon this coming Sunday? Is it
Reverend Wells.
Reverend Wells?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be back with Reverend Wells, and I'll be working with his amazing schedule to nail down the time. Do me a favor and go ahead and share this with somebody. Go ahead and share it on your page. Share it with somebody. We want to keep spreading the word. We're going to keep broadcasting these wide, but eventually they'll just be in the collective Facebook group, that online community that we're building with Christ Universal Temple. So we just want to make sure that that community has a place that's their own, a place to really socialize and a place to exchange ideas. But right now we're just spreading it wide. And so I want to encourage you to go ahead and share that with other people. Help us to spread this mission, spread the word. And people need to hear that about jumping over hurdles. They need to hear that right now. So I want to encourage you to do that. Thank you so much for your love, your attention, your focus. We felt the energy, and we know that it is just right now being magnified in each and every one of us. Have a beautiful rest of your day. God bless.
God bless.
God bless.